Christopher from CB Productions. And today, me and my parents are off to the Mount Washington Cog Railway.
Gonna be down the way down like.
Now I see some railroad tracks up the mountain. Here's for a fun fact. The train will bring us up to the mountain. The train that will power the 11 o'clock trip will be a biodiesel locomotive. In the summertime, steam locomotives are operated.
It says it one
Ladies
way.
and gentlemen, here we are at the Mount Washington Cog Railway's Souvenirs
I'm
Restaurant.
supposed to go, but
Here are the trains. Now the train I'll be taking will be this train right here. The trains will be going up this mountain. The yellow diesel has started up. Ladies and gentlemen, all aboard! There goes M3, or should I say, the red diesel. Going up the mountain first.
150 years of railroading here on the western side of Mount Washington. Rich history and traditions here we're keeping alive, almost like a living museum, transporting folks to the top of the highest peak in all of New England, of course, Mount Washington Summit at 6,288 feet above sea level. Your crew today is going to be Randall the engineer back there in the M4, and myself, my name is Andy. I'll be your brakeman, tour guide, and conductor for your outbound journey. So I'll just be with you for the way up, and you'll have a different crew on that descent, as I was mentioning earlier. This is the newest coach that's in operation right now in our fleet. This white coach was built just a couple of years ago in our shop facility just down the hill from here. We're very proud of the custom woodworking that we do and the fact that we keep a lot of stuff in-house here with our own team. We also built the diesel locomotives right here and maintain them in-house. You'll see the shop crew on the M2 next to us that'll go up for a test run behind us. Now I want to go over some safety rules before we get going, get these out of the way, and if you have any questions, definitely shout them out, let me know. First and foremost, ask that everyone remain seated for the first part of the trip. Once the engineer blows the horn, you can move around at your seats, either get a picture or cross the aisle if the aisle's vacant there, or if the seat next to you rather is vacant, get a picture on the other side. But please don't walk back and forth up and down extensively in the center aisle once we're underway, as it can be awkward with the pitch and the angle. And do not step onto the platform out here while we're in motion. Also, please never try to exit through the down mountain door. That door in the back is only for the engineer to come through at the summit or myself. And keep hands, arms, and objects inside the windows. If you do stick a camera out the window, keep a tight hold on it, because if you drop it, we won't necessarily be able to retrieve it. There is no smoking on board the train. And please don't hang on this centerpiece here like a handhold. It's actually a mount for the interior lights, and it doesn't have the ability to bear much weight. So we got the all clear to go. I'm going to get rid of the platform and give the engineer the all set, and I'll be right back aboard with you guys. Just hang tight. Now, if you watch the train in front of us get going, you'll see the mechanism that is essential for our travel up the very steep grade that we have here. The cog gears, which go into the center rack in front of us. The cogs spin around and lock into those spools in between the rack, meshing just like this. You can kind of think of it like a bicycle chain and a sprocket, where our chain is the rack and it's bolted in place, and the sprockets travel over it. They are driven on these diesels with a hydraulic drive system. So if you look inside the compartment of the diesel next to us, you'll see there's a John Deere motor, then a gearbox, and then two big hydraulic pumps that circulate fluid to the drive motors, which drive those gears. In the very back, the hydraulic fluid holding tank. So typically we don't have all the panels off, so you can see in there, so that gives you a great opportunity to see what's under the hood of these diesel hydraulic locomotives that we build ourselves. Here we go.
Well, here we go.
Now, in sharp contrast to those diesel units is our original locomotive, built in 1866, right over there on the right, old pepper sass. That unit was the first mountain climbing engine, was our first unit certainly, and it helped with the construction of the track in the early era. Very simplistic design steam locomotive.
That was the
that
first
vertical
one, see?
boiler there
The big
burned
boiler
wood,
with a big steamy.
and it went a whole 1.5 miles an hour. You can see it. You see underneath it does have the gearing system. And those cylinders there, the pistons, they drive the gearing system, not the wheels that are on the outside rails. And that is true today as well. Our wheels on the outside rails just freewheel, whereas those gears do the driving into that center rack. Liam here is getting ready to throw the switch once we pass through, so the adjacent track will be clear with the test locomotive. Our switches are hydraulically powered, 2 sets of rails and rack that can move back and forth in about 10 seconds to line you up to either side. Now, our track structure is a rather unique design, and it remains relatively unchanged since the early era here at the railway. It is one big, long wooden trestle. Lakes of the Clouds, the 2 highest elevation mountain lakes, or tarns as they're known, in the eastern U.S. They're situated on the col right in between Mount Washington and Mount Monroe, which is the next mountain over to the right, on the forward right there at about 2 o'clock. So that water flows down from that high mountain source. There's also an overnight shelter up there known as the Lakes of the Clouds hut that will open up next month for overnight stays for hikers off the trail. Now, this is not a roller coaster, although it may look like it at times. Our train does have a higher speed than what we've been doing so far. You might have felt that little acceleration. The engineer kicked us up a couple miles an hour, but right now we are at pretty much top speed, 5 miles an hour, and we'll maintain that for most of the ride, both up and down. Are to enjoy the peak. We have a coach up there as a shelter because the state park building that's up there isn't quite open for the season yet. So we do have a shelter coach up there, not that you'll really need it today. And inside are complimentary refreshments should you choose to partake. And you can access that with your ticket. So just show your ticket to get in that coach if you'd like to at the top. Now, we do run trains every hour, and this necessitates passing trains on items. All the switch points are lined. Now, this switch system has been updated. Mid-2000s, we upgraded all of our manual switches to these hydraulic decks. The old manual switches had 9 different moving parts that all had to be thrown one at a time by hand. So you'd have to actually get out and walk ahead and set your switch.
They look like they're sticking this way.
Here are the solars.
Solar powered switches.
And here's the yellow train passing by. On your left, there's the yellow train with the green coach.
Engineer Josh here in the Orange M7 will slow to a stop and wait for us to clear the switch.
Actually,
See the track?
that train is orange, not yellow.
You see the track? That's the cog that goes in. See it right there? See the rails spinning?
Yes.
See the thing spinning underneath? That's the cog.
Now these folks are coming down empty. That's John and the coach there
That's the cog.
because they brought up passengers the previous hour, but they didn't have anyone to pick up yet from the hour before that. So I will pick up their folks when I arrive, and then they will pick up you guys after your hour stay at the top. So you'll very likely be looking out for this coach here after your summit stay. Notice how it does have the platform B placard on there. So look for that at the top about an hour after you arrive. And we have this water tank here because we still run steam locomotive journeys from Memorial Day to Columbus Day. Stay true to our heritage. Steam trains draw water from the tank, which takes its water from an underground spring in the woods to the right with a gravity-fed line. Each steam journey requires 1,000 gallons of water and just shy of 1 ton of coal, all hand shoveled into the firebox.
There are two
That's a pretty
tracks.
sharp contrast to the 17 gallons
One is for the
of
left
diesel
side,
fuel
the other is for the
that
right
we'll
side.
use on these units
going on
to
the
make
right
our
side.
summit round mountain.
Here comes the blue biodiesel locomotive with the yellow passenger car.
One of a network of high huts and shelters in the White Mountains, run by the Appalachian Mountain Club.
Yellow.
That is to make the building level. So believe it or not, it's a level structure that's jacked up on that end to match the elevation of the upper end. So if you walked on the floor in there, it would be flat and even, unlike the floor of the coach.
Yeah. Now there's a solar again.
Solar switch station.
Solar switch
switches to
station.
switch the tracks. And look how high we're gonna go up. Look at the pitch. Look at that pitch going. We're gonna go up.
And you can start to see the first couple pockets of what very little remaining snow the mountain has left, thanks to the warm spell we've had over the last week and a half or so. Still good snow in the shady areas, like off of the woods, and in the ravine features.
Now here's for a fun fact. P.T. Barnum came off this train
Once our
in
engineer throws the switch behind
1869.
us, we'll be back up to full speed.
He was
in just
known
a
as
second.
the greatest showman on earth. And would you guys like to know what P.T. Barnum said after when he climbed off the train?
There we go.
He said that it was the
Very
second
shortly
greatest show on
the
earth.
right-hand side, and there's always been a structure in this location since the early days. The building was originally a transfer station where you'd switch between two trains, taking each halfway, and dry wood could be kept on hand there for the early wood-fired steam locomotives, just so you can see it easier. So as you get to right about here, you can notice the shape of a forehead, nose, mouth, and chin with a beard at the bottom.
And oh, straight down there, where those other mountains are, that's the country of Canada.
All right, up next. Now, not only that, it is the steepest and windiest rail trestle anywhere in the world. This is the famed Jacob's Ladder trestle with a 37.41% grade. It will take us 30 feet off the ground, which is the highest off the ground elevation we have on the track structure, and passes us between two ravines. Burt's Ravine to the left and Ammonoosuc Ravine to the right, with excellent viewing of the Lakes Hut once again, just over there on the ridge. Now when you look at track structures like this, you get an idea of the tough work the track crew had in the early era of building these trestles here on this rugged and unforgiving mountain face.
I'm good
Of course,
here.
without the aid of power tools in the mid-1800s, they now look more like shrubs. But like I said, they are fully grown and mature here in what is known as the Alpine Zone. left-hand side is a gorgeous and rather expansive view of the valleys below, but in between us and that view, a rather large drop. The precipitous drop here is into what is known as Burt's Ravine, which was named after Henry Burt, a newspaper publisher who published a unique newsletter from the very summit of the mountain of all places in the late 1800s. Henry Burt called his newsletter the Among the Clouds publication. The publishing office was located for a time in the Tip Top House where Sylvester Marsh stayed in 1857. Now that Tip Top House still stands today, and you'll see it at the summit. It'll be a stone structure set into the mountainside. Now it is often foggy or cloudy here on the ascent into the subalpine zone and above, so we do have a series of trackside of our tracks. It's known as Long Trestle, with a grade of about 35%, just a hair less than Jacob's Ladder there we passed behind us. Now Long Trestle had a brush with some severe weather back during the Great Hurricane of 1938. That storm had severe winds strong enough to topple this section of track and had to get completely reconstructed. So when winds are high, we will often curtail the trips here on the railway, only running as high as we can safely manage. Not an issue at all today, however. The mountain to our left is known as Mount Clay, named after Henry Clay, a prominent statesman.
There's the Henry Clay.
And while it is over 5,000 feet, it does not count as a Hampshire 4,000 footer because it does not have enough prominence. It sits too close to the adjacent mountains, of course, Mount Washington and Mount Jefferson on the other side of it, which we'll see in just a couple minutes. Welcome to the Alpine Zone, folks. This is the most extreme, unforgiving, and most dangerous part of the mountain for hikers. Now, while it may be nice today, the weather can change rapidly up here, and you're caught unprotected from the elements. There is permafrost beneath the soil, and as I mentioned earlier, about 6 to 7 months of continuous winter in this zone, with the possibility of winter conditions that can occur on any random day, even in the summer months. And a few rare alpine flowers, which will come out in about a month or so, but no more trees. Cairns, C-A-I-R-N-S. Cairn comes from a Scottish word which means head of trail. The pyramids are stacked up, maintained by the trail clubs, so hikers have a distinct path to follow even in foul weather. You can trace your way methodically from one cairn to the next. The West Side Trail, where these folks are, crosses just beneath the tracks ahead, so you'll see cairns to our left, but then appearing to the right-hand side in just a moment as well.
Look at this guy, oh my god.
And plenty of trail runoff. You can see the water flowing down. Still plenty of ground melt. We'll have a bit better view of that just ahead when we crest the next incline.
Maine and Canada. They're both between Maine and Canada.
Little cirque, bowl-shaped valley head here carved out long ago, with a 2,000 plus foot drop down to Spalding Lake, which is just out of view. Now, a body of water you can see is called Reflection Pond. That's about 13 miles away in Shelburne, New Hampshire, to the left there. And just beyond that, you're starting to get into Maine. So you're looking towards Maine out there to the left. And if you look to the forward and right, you'll see the summit. That turret-shaped structure is the Weather Observatory Tower, which is staffed 24/7, 365 by the nonprofit weather crew. Doing climate research and weather observation and forecasting, they contribute valuable data not only to us but to hikers and to the greater meteorological community. Attached to that building is the state park structure, which is not open yet for the season. It was built in 1980 to replace the earlier structure. with walls of up to 3 feet thick to withstand winds of up to 300 miles an hour. Now, because there's been a weather observatory up here in one form or another for almost 100 years, there is a lot of weather data that I can touch on to illustrate just how severe this mountain climate is. Mount Washington is actually often referred to as having the world's worst weather. And it is sadly the mountain with the highest hiker death toll in the United States, in spite of it certainly not being the tallest. Far from it, in fact, just the tallest in this region.
There are more people. Take your car and do the drive in your car. Especially coming down here at all the way down. If you're trying not to go off.
The average annual snowfall is about 231 miles an hour, back on April the 12th of 1934. This trail here ahead of us is actually part of the famous Appalachian Trail. You see these cairns here, just a piece or small segment of the AT, which runs from North Georgia to North Central Maine. Springer Mountain to Mount Katahdin, over 2,100 miles. The Appalachian Trail. Now, through hikers who are trying to hike the entire Appalachian Trail, set out on a journey they can take. Mount Washington experiences over 100 days a year of hurricane strength winds. That's anything of 74 miles an hour or greater. And 50 to 55 days a year of winds over 100 miles an hour. So it is one of the windiest places on Earth. Far cry from today's calm winds of 15 to 20 miles an hour.
He's not kidding. This is like
8-mile road tour, starting on the opposite side of the mountain from where we run our journey. The road opened in the 1850s as the Mount Washington Stagecoach Company. They actually had horse and carriage rides. Predates the railway by just a bit. A little later in the season, a sign goes on this wooden post commemorating Lizzie. And the engineer will blow the horn just after he passes
In a
by,
few moments, you'll hear the train's horn.
which will signal our impending arrival for the summit. I'd just like to ask everyone to remain seated for the final minutes of the journey. Remember, you will have approximately a 1-hour stay up here, and you want to retain your tickets for the ride down.
Let's go check out some cool stuff.
distance.
Oh my. That actually could be a fire.
Alright, hold on. Let me see that.
This is a little slippery, so I cool. Hey, Chris, see that white and red down there? I think that's the Mount Washington. That's the
Oh my god. Right?
Down there is the Mount Washington Hotel. Now here you can see the weather channel towers, or more of the mountain. There are people hiking. I believe those were the people I've seen.
Yes, they were up here, and they went by us.
Now, down there was where me and my parents got on the train.
Yeah.
We've managed to do some twists and turns.
Yep. Still gotta go back down this hill, all the way back.
Now, we're on the mountain. Here comes the train. Here comes the train. Here comes the orange train. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going down the mountain. Now we are coming down the mountain. Like I said earlier,
newspaper delivered to their door, let them know what's going on in the world, right? So then there became a demand for that newspaper in the town surrounding the mountain. They wanted to be able to sell them down there. So the print shop agreed, and they had to up their production by quite a bit. And the problem they had to solve, though, is how are they going to get those newspapers down every morning for distribution, because the train was not an option. So they did come up with a solution. They had these contraptions made up called slide boards. The slide boards were made out of wood. They were 3 feet long, had one seat on it, and on either side of the seat was a lever for a friction braking system. Okay, underneath it was a mechanism that fit right over our center rail there. We call the rack. So they had several of them up there, and every morning the team would get their slide boards. They had a pile of newspaper that was piled up. Hold on a second. Had newspaper piled tied up with the rope. They'd sit on their slide board and slide them down. Here comes the fun part. They left the summit at 4 o'clock in the morning. They got down to our base station at 4:04 in the morning. 4 minutes to get down there. And they claim they never lost a newspaper doing that. But then it became a competition, because of course everybody wants to be the fastest one down, right? So whenever somebody was going to try to break the record, they were making sure they were being timed. So when it was all said and done, these things got banned in the early 1900s. The fastest descent of Mount Washington on one of those was by an employee of the Cog Railway. Had his dog with him when he did it, and he got down in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. That's the speed record. Now we have an original slide board in our museum down here, so check that out. Someday I'm going to sneak it up and give it a shot. We then sold tickets to the public on those as a thrill ride. But it didn't take them long to figure out that was not a good idea. So those were banned in the early 1900s, but they were a big part of the history here of Cog Railway. The options there for dining, entertainment, and shopping, and all that sort of thing. So if you got time, you're going to check out that little town out. And they probably display that track on their marquee on their movie theater there on Main Street. So everybody's happy in Littleton, New Hampshire.
Right. That was so much fun. Now we're going inside the gift shop. Now there's the wooden Norfolk and Western 611. The only thing I've seen when I've seen the wooden 611 was that it was missing its tender. Well guys, that's all for my visit to the Mount Washington Cog Railway. On the other hand, guess where I am? That's right, the Conway Scenic Railroad. And I would love to thank each and every one of you for watching my visit to the Mount Washington Cog Railway. And if you're new and if you enjoy this video, welcome to CB Productions. Make sure to subscribe for more great content coming soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye!